Amid an escalating border crisis, President Biden now reportedly considering the Trump-era policies in which he ran against. But Republicans question, why didn't he do something during the past 3 years? Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. So what action is the president mulling over here?
Good evening to you, Steve. So President Biden could now take executive action unilaterally without Congress to crack down on illegal crossings at the southern border. And that's according to multiple reports saying that President Biden could use an illegal authority used by President Trump before. And it's called a 212F that could make it harder for migrants to seek asylum if they enter illegally. But the U-turn here potentially comes after Biden in the past month also blamed Trump for the border crisis, and also saying he's done everything himself to secure the border. Watch.
All I can do is just give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got in office. Give me the border patrol.
But the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends.
And while the White House says no final decision has been made on any executive action, President Biden is already feeling the heat from both sides of the aisle. House Speaker Mike Johnson on Thursday called Biden's possible executive action election year gimmicks, adding that it proves that Biden could have done something much earlier. Meanwhile, Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, among others, also called Biden's reported plan to restrict asylum outrageous, adding that, quote, doing Trump impressions isn't how we beat Trump. And aside from political pressure here, President Biden's reported plans could also face legal challenges just like Trump's did back in 2018. Steve.
Certainly unusual to see so much pushback recently within the Democratic Party. They're usually quite united. And this seems like it could be quite an uphill battle, Iris. What's the White House saying about Biden's plans?
Right. So aside from saying that no final decision has been made, the White House in the statement also says that no executive action, no matter how aggressive they are, can deliver the significant policy changes that Congress can do with its legislation. And it points out that Republicans rejected a bipartisan border deal. So no matter whether President Biden actually goes ahead with his potential executive action or whether it works or not with all these potential legal challenges, the White House will continue to blame Republicans for whatever is happening at the border right now. Steve.
NTD's Iris Tao live from the North Lawn of the White House. Thank you, Iris. Thousands of conservatives are gathering just outside of D.C. for this year's Conservative Political Action Conference. The event is streaming live on our website at ntd.com, and NTD's Jack Bradley is there.
I'm here at CPAC just outside of D.C. at the Gaylord Resort and Hotel, where thousands are gathering to hear from many conservative leaders about issues that matter most to them. Immigration's the top issue, there's energy, and many others related to the election this year. Donald Trump's speaking on Saturday, and he's going to be speaking the same day as the South Carolina primary, where he's leading Nikki Haley by many points here, a wide margin. And Nikki Haley is not speaking at this event here at CPAC. She did speak last year, but she's not now. From what I've seen here, mostly people are pro-Trump. There's other people who are speaking here as well as potential running mates for Donald Trump, including Kristi Noem, Elise Stefanik, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, many others. Other conservative candidates running for public office are here trying to win over voters. Another thing to watch for is how to address the issue of foreign funding, and if we should keep funding the war in Ukraine or take another route. This event runs till Saturday. We'll be here to bring you live updates. Back to you.
Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds says it's pretty cool to be on President Trump's shortlist for possible VP picks, and that he would accept if Trump does indeed ask him to become vice president. We sat down with Congressman Donalds earlier, where he talked about the border crisis, Trump's border policies, and the Senate's responsibility to hold an impeachment trial of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Congressman, it appears as though the former president, current candidate for president, has a short list for vice president. You're on it, it appears to be. Would you accept that if you were asked?
Yeah, I would. It's something I've been on the record saying. Pretty cool to be on the short list. I got to say that as well. But look, President Trump's going to make that decision. Whatever he decides, I'm going to be fine with. I want him to win. I want him back in the White House. We have a country that we got to fix. We have a country to make great again. I think we need his leadership to do that. Whatever else comes with that, cross that bridge when you come to it.
I want to get your thoughts. He was at a town hall recently with Laura Ingraham in South Carolina, and the issue of New York State came up. Polling shows that he's got a real chance there without even campaigning right now. That's your home state. What do you make of this?
Well, look, New York is a very interesting state. We've always kind of vacillated between Republicans and Democrats in the city of New York about who was going to be mayor. But what's happened is that the people of New York are witnessing firsthand how diabolical radical Democrat policy is. They're seeing it every day. You got illegal immigrants living in the street. You got illegal immigrants beating up police officers, NYPD's finest. You have kids being kicked, not being able to use their soccer fields because they're being used for migrant shelters. You had schools where the kids are being kicked out of the schools because they needed to put more migrants somewhere. This is a tragedy for us, for a state like New York. And then you have the lawfare, the insanity of the justice system, where yes, you have business owners who are now thinking about, do I want to do business in New York? I mean, personally, my advice is come to Florida. We will take care of you. We will make sure you're free to do your business as long as you're not harming somebody else. But what's happened in New York has been a travesty. You put on top of that the anti-Semitism that has invaded New York, and the fact that, you know, you have an administration who won't stand strong for Israel on the world stage. I think all these things are at play in a state like New York. But with respect to President Trump and the Republican Party, our job is to have a vision. Have a vision for America, promote that vision, campaign hard on that vision, and we believe voters, no matter where they live in our country, they'll respond to it.
You mentioned how illegal immigration has affected New York, specifically New York City. The House of Representatives voted to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. Do you think the Senate will ultimately hold a trial?
They should. That is my hope that they do. They shouldn't just dismiss this. And to be frank, Republicans in the Senate should not allow Chuck Schumer to dismiss this. He was impeached after a long and exhausting investigation into his conduct as the Secretary of Homeland Security. This isn't like the two Trump impeachments where Nancy Pelosi just wanted to impeach him and they had one hearing and threw it on the floor for a vote. This is not that. We went through an exhaustive process. The Senate has a responsibility to hold a trial. Those are our constitutional norms. They should follow it.
So the president, I think his attention is gotten on the issue of illegal immigration, as you see with the Democratic Mayor Eric Adams of New York City sounding the alarm. Would you support him? I think the answer is obvious, rolling back the executive orders that he rescinded from Trump.
Oh, so of course, the Trump policies worked on our southern border. That's what needs to be put back in place. Look, if Joe Biden was with us, the smart thing to do is to just take the Trump policies, call them something different if that floats your boat, but put them back into place. That's what's best for the country. But he can't do that because the radicals in his party have wanted open borders for decades, and now they got it. And the American people are suffering as a result. So, yes, we want the policies back in place because that's what's best for the country. But I don't think Joe Biden's going to do that because the radicals in the Democrat Party won't allow him to. And that's indicative because much has been said about, oh, well, Joe Biden's not going to be their nominee. They're going to swap him out for somebody else. Let me just explain this to the American people. It doesn't matter who the Democrat nominee is. Their policies are the same, and those policies are destructive of this country.
Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Congress is out of session, but the clock is ticking to fund the government. House Republicans in the Freedom Caucus are setting the stage to secure spending cuts and major policy wins on abortion, the border, and more. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more on the looming spending showdown.
Lawmakers will return to D.C. next week with just 3 days on the legislative calendar to yet again avoid a government shutdown. This is because the divided Congress has failed to secure a full-year budget, instead relying on 3 consecutive short-term funding bills just to keep the lights on. But with the March 1st deadline fast approaching, spending hawks are already making their demands loud and clear. The conservative-led House Freedom Caucus wrote to Speaker Mike Johnson laying out a number of must-haves in the budget, such as eliminating the salary of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, scrapping the Pentagon's abortion travel policy, defunding taxpayer funds for gender transition surgeries, and more. If the group can't secure these wins, they say they'll settle for a full-year temporary government funding plan. But this would trigger a 1% spending cut across the board, because that is the deal that President Biden made with Congress just last year. Democrats, however, are likely to reject this, putting House Speaker Mike Johnson in a tight spot to avoid a government shutdown. Additionally, Speaker Johnson is under pressure to act on the foreign aid package, one Democrat, Josh Gottheimer, even going so far as to circulate a resolution to try to protect Speaker Johnson from his own party ousting him in hopes that he'll put this foreign aid package on the floor. But for this plan to work out, the majority of lawmakers in the House will need to be on board. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.